Good morning, Scott here, known as Cantaloupe to some online, and I'm bringing another video to you on a subject that's interesting to me. It might be of interest to you or someone you know. And I recently made a video about how I don't give orders in general in any of my videos. It's mostly just advice and wisdom that would have been nice for me to have sooner, so I share it in the same vein that I pick up advice from music and movies and videos that I watch. It's maybe helpful, not guaranteed to be helpful, and it's certainly not a command. I'm not issuing any kind of requirements if people think that, and apparently more than one person did think that. That's why I made that video. But anyway, I also want to connect this video with a bigger idea that sometimes there's a question behind it. A question and a comment are two different things. Hopefully that's obvious. A question raises a subject, perhaps, or actually asks you to think about something and give an answer, right? I mean, that's obvious. Some people are still confused about the difference between comments and questions. So I'm going to ask a question in this video, and it's, for the last time, not a command, not a suggestion, even, I'm not even saying I'm right about it. I'm saying that there may be, a question about it. There may be a debate called for on this subject, and that is, to get to the point, the role of sex in human beings and human behavior. So you understand maybe now why I qualified all of this video with so much, this is not a fact. This part here is not a fact. This is a question. So what if the role of sex has a common intended purpose in the context of the human species, in the context of human society, in its most raw form, in its most basic form, that is to say, in the jungle? What if sex has a very specific and important role besides just reproduction, but to fit in with a bigger picture? What if there's meant to be a bigger picture is the question. What if? So the reason I say this is because it has become so just unbelievably common that sex is regarded as entertainment nowadays, either watching it or participating in it, that it sounds ridiculous that sex should be something different than that. It's that the possibility even exists that sex isn't just for fun. So here's another example. Here's a parallel idea, a thought experiment, if you will, where if you look at anything, literally anything, not just sex, but some kind of tool or an action, a job description, there's a purpose to it. Many times there is a very clear purpose, which if you get away from that purpose by degrees, it starts to not work so well. Maybe you understand where I'm going with this. If something has a purpose, I'm saying if there is some kind of organic or intrinsic purpose that a thing lends itself to, and of course some things are multi-purposed, that's fine. What if when you get away from their intended or organic uses, their intrinsic usefulness, they stop working? What if you start to encounter errors and dysfunction by degrees the farther away you go from using it how it was designed? What if? And what if sex is just no different than anything else that you can think of that has a purpose? What if by making the purpose of sex entertainment, if you will, by way of media, or prostitution or pornography, or just having casual sex with contraception, what if by doing any of that stuff you are departing from its intrinsic natural purpose? I'm just saying what if. I'm not even saying I'm right about this, but I'm seeing a pattern here. I'm seeing a pattern that in nature there must be a bigger picture for sex. It's the only way that people were able to evolve for so long without just killing each other off completely is that there had to be some balance at some point, some kind of family structure and community structure that worked periodically. Not that we're told too much about this, in honesty. I hear a lot of things about how bad and brutish a state of nature must be, but I honestly have still not seen it. I'm 50 years old and I still haven't seen people just slaughtering each other wholesale in the jungle. I mean, yeah, okay, no, it does happen. There are very primitive and hostile and aggressive and abusive natives sometimes. The Incas, the Aztecs, the Mayans, they all sacrificed people and had their rituals. But I think that you don't hear about the ones that are peaceful, is what I think. I think that no news is good news. I think throughout history, actually, you don't hear about successful monarchies because, by definition, they were uneventful. And on the same token, civilizations, tribes, communities, families that don't end up murdering each other off don't go down in history because there's nothing to write about, right? They spent their time enjoying themselves and being prosperous and healthy and happy. I have to think that that has happened, or else there wouldn't be people. So my conclusion here is that if this has happened, and if I'm right that the vast majority of time people are actually being peaceful and healthy and happy, finding balance somehow, and if sex is part of that picture and it has a bigger purpose in that environment, by turning it into a commercial product, by turning it into something where even if it's not paid for or purchased, that it's just meant to get your jollies real quick, as a distraction, as having fun. Here, let's have some fun in the bedroom. Well, wait a minute. Okay, but what happens tomorrow? Ask yourself honestly. After you have fun in the bedroom, if you ever had a fling or a one-night stand, the next day what happens exactly? How do you feel about it? How does she feel about it? Do you guys stay in touch? Do you feel good about it? I'm saying I haven't. I've had just a couple of one-night stands in my life, and I regret them. I regret them deeply. And in fact, I tried very hard to keep them from being that, but it was against all odds, and I was unsuccessful in those cases. To be candid, sometimes people disappear. Sometimes people didn't make a great decision and they regret it, and then they just stop calling you, that kind of thing. And it's a very small percentage of the relationships I've had in my life, thank God, but I regret those few times, is what I'm saying. So in conclusion, I'm at over 7 minutes already. I think that there might be a very specific picture in which sex is part of love. It's part of a family, activity, and you're not going to want to hear that, but obviously sex is designed for reproduction at some point, right? I mean, that's how humans do it. And to consider it something different, no matter what that difference is, by degrees, you depart from something functional. You depart from a healthy, happy way of life, no matter how you do it, whether it's commercial, whether it's, just casual, frivolous, meaningless, which to me is very sad. It's sad because you're missing the bigger opportunity by abstaining, perhaps, by waiting for something meaningful with an expectation of permanency. I mentioned this many times in my videos, an expectation of permanency. And here's why. Not because it's morally proper, but because if I'm right and there is a purpose, that would serve the purpose. And you would get back to the actual intended use of having sex. And it would fit. It would make sense. It would work because that's how it happens. That's what, if you use a tool how it's designed, it tends to work. That's all I'm saying. So reach out if you like with questions or comments to whitehotrobot@gmail.com. Thank you.